Good afternoon. Today we have a very special guest. He is my personal attorney. He is one of the best attorneys in El Paso, and that's going to be Mr. Mark T. Davis. Mark Davis, welcome.
Well, thanks, Mario. Glad to be here on the MAREG experience.
Well, I'm glad that you came. We have a lot to decompress, a lot to talk about. For those of us in El Paso who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in El Paso since I was 11. My dad was in the military, and I've been practicing law here. I think I'm coming up on 30 years. I hate to admit it, but I love what I do. It's a great vocation, and it's an opportunity to help a lot of people.
Okay. So you've been practicing law for 30 years in El Paso. Where'd you go to school to?
I went to Burgess High School.
Okay.
From there, I went to UTEP. I loved being at UTEP. And after that, I went to Waco to Baylor to get my law degree at Baylor Law School.
Oh, Baylor Law. Cool. I'll show you right now. I have a hat.
Oh, I see
Baylor
it
Bears, yeah. One of my friends' son is going to be playing for Baylor here next year. So you've been practicing for 30 years. What do you think you specialize? What kind of law do you think you specialize in, or is your forte?
Well, there's three of us in my law firm. It's also Bruce Gomez and George Monserrati, and we're a litigation firm. We like stuff that goes to trial.
Okay.
It's not the only thing we do, but we do a lot of family law. You know, that's been bread and butter for a long time. That means custody. We do a lot of custody and divorces and so forth. But also we do estate planning and probate litigation. That means we're fighting over the estate, what might come of it. And we love real estate. Real estate's a great area. It
is. It definitely is. And that's actually how we came to know each other. There was a person living in one of the properties that I had recently purchased, and they were refusing to move out because they thought it was their property. And I mean, I had a title to the property, and I owned the property. And we went through like 4 or 5 different lawyers, myself and my partner, JC. And finally, he's like, hey, there's this one guy that says it's an easy case, that it's very winnable. Let's meet with them next week. And that's when we met with you. Do you remember that particular situation?
I do remember that case. That's quite a few years ago, but that was fun. Sometimes things seem like unsolvable, but yet often in the law there's great solutions depending on the set of facts. But I do remember that case. That was quite interesting.
Exactly. And then from there, we developed a friendship, a relationship, that I think is pretty nice. I like to get the mentorship that I receive from you, the different tips. And you've seen, like you said, you've been doing law for 30 years. I've been alive for 34, so that's always great. It's for young people to take mentorship from someone who's been doing something for a long time. So from someone who's been successful at something for a long time.
Mario, it really goes two ways, too. I like to identify the up-and-coming people, and you're one of them in El Paso. And there's wisdom on both ends. As we age, we should start to learn and get to know. But there's some young people that start out with a great focus and are eager to learn. I think we should be learning all our life.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely true. What do you think what was it that pushed you to become a lawyer?
Well, to tell you the truth, I had an angel for a mom.
Okay.
She is beautiful. She's not around anymore, but I had a home repair business, and I'd often go over to her house and sit at her picnic table. She'd make lunch. Come over, have a sandwich. And one day she says, Mark, why are you going to community college? Why are you taking those classes at night? And I said, well, Mom, TV's boring. I like to watch TV, and I like to learn stuff. And she said, son, I want you to get a degree. And I said, no, I'm really not interested. I have my business. Life's good. She goes, well, she had that soft voice, you might end up married, and there may be barriers that prevent you from getting an education. Your dad and I will pay for your tuition if you go. So I really went for fun.
Okay.
And I got a degree in political science, which is basically a useless degree in my opinion, but I've got it, you know.
Okay.
And while I was there, I started realizing, man, I'm not a Kennedy. I can't just be going to school for fun while my parents are paying for it. I need to get something that matters. So at UTEP, they have a great test, and I don't know the name of it, but you take the test, and it's not knowledge, it's what interests you. And then they compare your results with people who are successful in 300 or 400 different careers. And I'd never thought of being a lawyer. But they came up with two things that they thought that I would be successful at. One was a high school teacher, which I think that'd be a wonderful job. I have friends who do that, and a lawyer.
Okay.
So after I graduated, that's when I applied and was accepted at Baylor and got my law degree.
Well, that's an interesting story. That's good to hear. Your mom pushed you, your dad pushed you. I think there was I don't know the exact Bible verse, but last time when we were at my son's graduation it was a stepping up from second to third, I'm sorry. And they gave me a verse that stuck with me, which was, if you teach them young, when they're older, they won't stray too much from the path. So your parents taught you, I'm pretty sure they taught you while you were young, but they told you when you came of age, hey, go to school, do this, and when you're older, you won't stray too much from the path. Now that you're older, you're in a good career. You help a ton of people by helping. You recently had a golf tournament, and you do that every year.
Yeah, I started that about 12 years ago.
Okay.
In the United States, the government it has so much money. There's no orphanages in the United States. Did you know that? There's none.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, children are placed with families, foster families, and then the foster families get a certain amount of money every month because they're caring for and raising that child. But I became aware through Bob Hall of an orphanage in Juarez, and in Mexico, the government provides about the equivalent of $30 a month per orphan, so it's a very small amount of money. And when Bob told me about, he was running a maquila over there, Durham Manufacturing, and they had this orphanage, Casa de Niños y Ancianos. It was just a few blocks over. And at first, I thought, those poor orphans. But when I got involved and started supporting and fundraising for it, I really changed my mind. We like to take the kids out maybe to Peter Piper Pizza or something once a month or so. And once you get to know them, you start to realize this orphanage is doing such a good job, and you have to consider where the kids came from. A lot of them lost their parents to drug cartel fighting and murders and so forth. Some come from homes where there's drug abuse and they're neglected. Mm-hmm. And these kids, I'd like you to go over there one time with me and see. When they go to school in the morning, the girls have ribbons in their hair. They're well groomed. They have nice clothes. And so you think, oh, these poor orphans. Not at all. They're doing a great job for these kids, and they grow up in a moral environment. They pray. Mm-hmm. They go to church, and the people that run the orphanage are fantastic. So we do a golf tournament once a year, and okay. We raise funds, and we pay the utilities all year round, and other things. We buy them washer and dryers, and just meet their needs as they come up.
That's awesome. That's something not a lot of people do. How much can you disclose how much you raised for them this last tournament?
I think it was $64,000. Thank you for your team too. I appreciate you coming out and playing. Yeah. But I think it was $34,000. I might be a little off on the number. I think the tournament, paying for the golf course and all that stuff, I think it netted about $50,000.
Okay.
Which $50,000, that's $4,000 a month for the whole year. Mm-hmm. And there's 28 children there. There's about 12 ancianos, old. There's also another building with old people. So, and in Juarez, you can do a lot of things with $4,000 bucks.
Yeah, that's definitely something great that you're doing for the community. You touched on something that I really, really like, which is the morals. That these kids are growing up with morals, and you are someone who is very, very outspoken on social media. I'm your friend on social media, and for those who aren't, go at him on social media, Mark T. Davis. But sometimes you hit the nail right in the head, and this is with not necessarily my political view, but I know that you have started an acronym, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your acronym?
Well, I think that life is complicated. Human beings, when we advance ourselves, sometimes we're not even honest with ourselves and what we're doing and our goals. And I was raised in a different environment. I want to do the right thing. And sometimes doing the right thing hurts. If you have to tell the truth, but it's going to cost you, hey, I did wrong, it becomes harder to tell the truth. And so there's, in our society, there's different ideas that flow back and forth. They're almost like viruses, how they move around among us. And some ideas are spread not because they're good ideas, but because they advance something that some group or someone wants that might not be a good idea at all. And I think that our media, and I'm talking about the news and so forth, has become, I think I'd like to use the word corrupt, in that they present what they say is news, but it's really indoctrination. Okay. These are ideas you have to believe. And I disagree with some of them. One of them is feminism. And I've done over 10,000 divorces, and I've studied the roles of men and women. And if you go back to the 60s and the 50s, we needed feminism. The world was unfair to women, and we needed change, and feminism was the right thing, and it happened. And so over the years, we're paying attention now. Equal opportunity, women have to have the same opportunity that men have. It's only right. It just makes sense, We just celebrated Juneteenth, and I posted on my social media, Juneteenth is a celebration for all Americans, not by any particular race. It's a celebration that America did the right thing and said, we're not going to do any more slavery. That's wrong, and we can't treat people that way. But there's almost like a pendulum swing, and feminism has taken on some of the bad things instead of the good things that it started with. For instance, I think today feminism encourages promiscuity. And promiscuity is harmful to families.
Okay.
It's harmful to our society, but it's become where feminism said, hey, men could do it. Now we'll do it. And in many ways, the pendulum has swung too far. I was watching, her name is Alyssa. I don't know her last name. She did that Bud Light fiasco.
Okay.
And she was talking about, my focus is on women in communities and so forth. And she says, I hired a female choreographer, to do some promotion for Bud Light. And my criticism is, being a woman or a man is not a quality at all. It doesn't qualify you for any job. And if we quit going forward on our merits, we just say, oh, we got to hire more women. I went to my school, Baylor. My son wanted to go to law school. He's in law school now. And as I started investigating schools, I found out that they have quotas.
For female attending?
Females and for races. Okay. That's racism. When we deviate from merit, we start getting things that affect our society in a negative way. There's certainly no university that say, oh, we're just going to have men here. But on the other hand, we can't have one that says we want 80% women. When I went to Baylor, I audited a class down there. And that's where I went to school. I love Baylor. And I found out they're excluding men.
Oh, wow.
They're social engineering, saying we need more women lawyers. There's many men lawyers. And that's wrong. And so feminism has become, we're not looking to get rid of inequities. We want to create favors for ourselves. And that's where it's just gone too far. And we have to wake up and say, hey, we're stopping. In El Paso, family law judges are almost all women. The people elected them, that's fine. I'm happy with it. In fact, a lot of them are great judges that I like a lot. But when we start saying, oh, we have women judges more than men, why is that? Is it important that women be judges or men? No, it's not important at all. It's just that good people should run, and they should be elected and be judges, and we should be blind, whether they're men or women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's really, really good. Do you think that translates into the outcome when it comes to family law? Because I've seen all these different statistics that 90% of a 90% of children in a fatherless household have the same 90% of fatherless children households have the same what's it called, chance to go to jail than people.
Mario, you're touching on a subject that's close to my heart. There's 195 countries in the world.
Okay.
In terms of single parenting, you know where we are? We're number one. That's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
I equate that with child abuse. When we get the idea that, fathers we just don't really need them. They're not that important.
Yeah.
It's a major mistake. The statistics are so strong. Children raised in a single-parent household are 8 times more likely to go to prison.
That's the one.
Yeah. Teenage pregnancy is huge. Mental illness, and when I say mental illness, I mean depression and other problems, much, much more prevalent in single-parent homes. And for us to say, one's enough, without looking at the statistics and reading the facts. And look, 90% of the prison population was raised in a single-parent home. Did you know that? 90%.
Yeah.
The number is so huge. And the reason it matters is linguists and sociologists tell us that cultural ideas go back easily 500 years. So this first came out, have you ever heard of the Hatfields and the McCoys? That story?
Yes.
What happened was they were from Ireland. And there is basically, the immigrants came over and there was 2 basic cultures, farmers and sheep herders.
Okay.
And farmers have to cooperate. They need their help when it's time to plant seeds and when it's time to harvest. Sheep herders, they don't want to cooperate at all. Everyone out there is trying to steal my sheep. And so they're very feisty. They resort to violence a lot faster. It's cultural. And so these things get transferred. Nobody's sheep herding that I know of today, but yet I have some Irish background, and Irish who were sheep herders, we go back generations, and you can find that they continue to transmit this brinksmanship in your face. Hey, get out of here. That type of aggressive.
The fighting Irish.
Yes. Where farmers, when you go back, you'll find that they're much more cooperative and they want to avoid conflict and work together. So what we have is values. And it takes generations really to pick out the good values. And a parent's job is the main job that a parent is supposed to be doing, or better, 2 parents, is transmitting good values from one generation to the next. And if you have a break in it, whatever good values that you've developed over all these generations, if you have a break where someone has to work and the kids have a key to get in the house after school and the parent's gone, you have a break in the chain of passing on good values. And then the kids start watching TV and getting their values from things they see on TV. In China, kids watch TikTok. You know what they see?
Yeah, engineering stuff and achievements, basically.
Yeah, kids winning sports or science and things like. Our kids see very different things on TikTok.
A bunch of dumb shit.
Yeah, and it's not beneficial to their understanding of what's good morals and how to have a good relationship. Our relationship skills are gone in this country. I don't want to sound too negative because really half of marriages do last.
Yeah.
Which, I don't think that's a number to celebrate, but at least half lasts for a lifetime. Half of kids, it's less than half now, get to live in the same house with their mother and father all their life. And there's criticism, even where there's marriages, some are tempestuous and sometimes there's problems and there's stress, but it's about 8 times worse in a single-parent home, much more likely to be. So I'm pretty pro-marriage, even though I'm a divorce attorney.
I know. Yeah. I mean, what do you think of parental alienation?
That fits into a whole dynamic. And I'd like to, if we have time, I'd like to go back and explain that again in terms of history. I was talking about feminism, the 50s and 60s, and how we woke up to this injustice against women. if you go back to the 30s or 40s, and I don't care if it's in Mexico or the United States, if there was an end to a marriage, the man got everything. The men had complete control over the kids, the property, and women did not have opportunities outside the house. And sometimes, whenever anyone has power, there's a tendency to abuse it. Some won't, but many will. And so out of Mexico, we get the idea of the machismo. And I'm sure you've heard of that concept,
yeah, I've heard the
where
concept.
a man has a family, but then he feels proud to have another woman on the side or other children in other households, which we know is not healthy to the core family. Mm-hmm. These other kids are raised in a family where it's blended, or their father is with a woman that he has more alliance to than their mom, and it gets confusing. But there was abuse, and there was domestic violence was common, and it was not redressed in any way. Well, whenever there's a force, there's always a counterforce. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to call this women speak.
Okay.
Women speak came when women had no way to defend themselves from abusive husbands, so they would start forming relationships with other women in the community. And they would tell them about these things that are going on in their home, and they would be able to talk about it. So they developed a secret communication. This goes back generations, where in our society today, generally women feel an obligation to communicate and share secrets with each other. Men don't have this. We don't share secrets. In fact, we don't really talk about our family much among men. But women, if you're around a group of women and one says, hey, I got a new boyfriend, the others all look and say, you didn't tell me that. Mm-hmm. They'll feel slighted, like they're out of the group. So this women speak grew as a defense against the abuse by men. Mm-hmm. So they would share things. But it kept growing into other things, like they would tell others bad things about their husbands, so that in the event of a breakup or something, they would have someone who would automatically support them, and spread bad rumors about their husband within the community. That grew. That's the seed of dysfunctional personality today. When you have no power and you're abused, you want to think of anything you can to strengthen your position. So that's where silent treatment comes from. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to talk to you, or withholding sex, or other things that in a normal relationship are exchanged and enjoyed together. You start cutting those things off, forming groups on the side that would protect you in the event of an end to the relationship. But women will share information among themselves that they won't share with their own husband, and that's developed over the years and is passed on to this day. When I'm doing a divorce and I'm representing a father and we're talking about custody, if I subpoena the school teacher, she comes to the court, she's got a subpoena, she's got to be there. If it's a woman, and most teachers are women, when she gets there and she sees that I represent the dad, she'll turn against me. And I'll ask her maybe a question, have you seen my client picking up his son at the school? Well, I've seen both of them. Mm-hmm. She'll start staging her answers to support women speak. Women must defend each other and protect each other, because men generally, because of the past, are seen as the enemy in the event of any sort of a domestic dispute. Okay. I know it's kind of a complicated thought, but it explains a lot when you see what goes on in family court.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. Speaking of court, speaking of all this stuff, and taking just a little left turn here, when you represented me in the real estate court, and we won, and we've had situations like that. What are some of the biggest real estate deals that you've had to defend in court, or had to win or lose in court? What are some of the biggest real estate deals that you've had to defend in court that you can talk to us about?
Well, I do have an attorney-client privilege that I can't violate. Of course,
okay.
Many cases are of public record because they're filed. But I've represented lenders, many real estate agents that have long-term continuing business. I have had a client that a lot of business activity in El Paso. If I I can't say my client's name, but everyone would know it if I said it. And over the years, lawsuits would come in, probably 2 a month.
Okay.
But the business was so big that I don't want to see those lawsuits. Just send them to Mark's office. And it's amazing when you see how business, as it scales up, becomes very different. The lawsuits become that's just a part of business. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which it's my business, lawsuits, but I don't think it's common to realize that. Have you ever heard of the 1 out of 10 rule? Many big corporations use this. If you get complaints, let's say you get 10, probably out of that 10, only one's going to do something to assert their rights. So you ignore all 10. 9 out of 10, they're not going to mess with you.
Okay.
So whatever complaint they have, you just say, no, we're not doing anything about that. You only have to fight 1 out of 10.
I mean, and it's crazy how you say that, because before I met you, or before I needed an attorney, I had never been to a lawyer's office. I'd never needed an attorney. I've never anything. Since then, and of course it has to do with the scaling of my business, right? Because when I met you, I was a single agent selling real estate, buying houses, flipping houses. Now the brokerage is up to 54 agents, so now I broker 54 agents. We have a great partnership with the builder next door and whatnot. But now I feel like I see you at least once a month for one thing or another. Hey, Mark, this guy doesn't want to get out. Or, hey, Mark.
Too often. You have to come see me.
A little too often for anyone. And it's like, you really do need, as an agent and as a business owner, you need to align yourself with an attorney who is going to help you, who is going to guide you properly. That's not just going to, what I think and how it happened. And this is, I don't know if this is breaking attorney-client privilege, but in that real estate deal, I feel like the person on the other side was ill-advised by their attorney because of the potential of a big payout if they were to keep the house.
Yeah.
And he was working, I think it was pro bono or something like that, or on a contingency of winning. And then we come along and we beat them in court. And now this guy who has been advising this person incorrectly for over a year, because that's how long we were in this court battle, is now out of money. The client was advised incorrectly and things like that. You've spoken to my real estate company before, and you've talked to us about the formation of an LLC. And how important is it? Can you tell us the story of how an LLC started, or how the LLC starts?
Yeah, before I do, that reminds me of something, and we've all heard it as a kid. You're walking and someone says, step on a crack, break your mother's back. I get people in my office all the time who have the deal's already done, and they have no remedy. And I'm thinking, boy, I wish you would have come in, and had a consult before, and I could advise you, and then you never go to court. I have people all the time that sign contracts that have arbitration. Arbitration is very expensive and difficult. It's designed to hold off the person who might sue. And so they have signed away their remedy before they get to me. And I'm sorry.
And even to touch base on that, all of our contracts are promulgated forms through the Texas Real Estate Commission. They say consult an attorney before signing this. And a lot of people are in the heat of the moment, and I want to really buy this house, I really want this deal and whatnot, and they don't know or I really want to sell my house. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. Where a consult with you, and the consult, there is a consult fee, which is gonna save you thousands.
Yeah, and you don't want to spend a lot of money when you don't even have a fight, but a consult with an attorney before you can learn a lot in 1 hour with an attorney on your specific transaction. I know there's in the community there's fear, going to a doctor, a lawyer, the cost, but a consult's cheap.
Yeah.
And you can find out a lot in a consult.
In the greater scheme of things. So tell me, how does a corporation start? Where does the term corporation come from, and how does that work?
Well, I'd like to share that because a lot of people come in and say, I want a corporation, and sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. That's just one way of doing business, and there's many different ways. And I have a little story I tell about how corporations form. Corporations from Latin corpus, meaning
Okay.
a body. And actually, it's the idea of a corporation, it's just fiction. There's no such thing. We made it up. Just like trusts, we made that up. Estates. Yet, we make it up, and the law says a corporation is real, and it can do business. It can buy and sell. It can own property. It can do anything like a person, as if it has a body. But
Okay.
of course, there is no body. So there's people running it, but the corporation exists separately. But the corporations came back in the time of noblemen and kings. And I have a story that I tell where the king would divide up his whole kingdom into separate little sort of states. And he'd tell the nobleman, you can run that over there. Just be sure and pay me taxes. And if there's a war, you got to send me men.
Okay.
That's the only two things you got to do. Otherwise, I'll just cut off your head. Do we have a deal? Of course, we have a deal. But they started sending ships out, but they would sometimes they go on an expedition to go trade glass beads for gold in Africa, and these ships would. Back then, the world was flat, so
Okay.
it would fall off the edge. And the king had set up courts for disputes in the kingdom, and the wives of the sailors that were on that ship would sue the nobleman. And so they said, my peasants are getting richer than me. They're suing me and because my ship fell off the edge of the world and never came back. And so the king came up with the idea, well, we're going to create a new law that you can form a corporation. The corporation can own the ship. And that idea continues right till today. Walmart is a corporation.
Okay.
And it's owned by its shareholders who have their wealth outside of the corporation. That's the idea, to protect wealth
Okay.
from those that might take it through the court system or otherwise.
That's an interesting story. Speaking of falling off the side of the earth and ships and whatnot, I know that you have a scuba diving, you're a certified scuba diver, correct?
I love scuba diving.
You love doing
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
What do you think of the situation right now that's happening? I don't know if you've read too much with the billionaire expedition that they were going to the Titanic wreckage, and now they're lost at sea.
Oof. Yeah, I
And-
heard they paid, I think, $200,000 a piece to go
A
on
quarter
there.
of a million, $250,000 a piece, and it was him, his son, and a couple of other people.
I saw a quote of the guy that apparently put that together, and he was saying everything has risk. If you don't take a risk, you can't get anything done. And now that probably some people have lost their lives, I see some criticism of him. But it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has to evaluate the risk on their own. I don't think I would have gone down in that sub. I think I would have just looked at the pictures.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough call. And even if they do surface and they're not, this hatch can only be opened through the outside.
You'd think they'd have a big hook that could.
Well, I was actually we were talking about that, Carlos and I yesterday, and you go down. What is the Titanic? Is what, 1 mile?
12,000 feet down.
12,000 feet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what
More than 2 miles.
is it?
Yeah, there's
Oh yeah, it is.
5,280.
I'm thinking acres, not miles.
Yeah.
But if you needed a hook, how big would the ship have to be to carry, chain or even
No
if it's
kidding.
mesh wire to have 2 miles worth of it, to go down? Like it's
Would the cable or the chain even be able to support its own weight? 2
exactly
miles long? It's
exactly
amazing.
how do you create a cable or chain of 2 miles?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of logistic things to it, and I mean, once again, taking another turn, recently, or I don't know how long ago this was, but there was an incident for which you went viral. You were on
Which one, Mario?
right, the most recent one, which was the hot Cheeto incident. It was, I think, it made national headlines.
It did. It really went viral, more than I expected.
Yeah, what happened there?
So, I think it was on a Sunday. Lucy Ray was at the zoo here in El Paso, and the claim was made by her employer, who is Rob Lovett. He went on the social media, I forget which one, whether it was Facebook or whatnot, but he went on and he announced that someone had gone into the monkey chamber, or the monkey display at the El Paso Zoo and given a monkey a Cheeto.
Mm-hmm.
And he and his wife Nora had found out that it was a paralegal that worked in their office, and that they're animal lovers, and this was despicable, and that they wanted the whole world to know that they fired Ms. Ray.
Okay.
And I had a daughter, and Ms. Ray was a friend of my daughter's, so I knew her. I hadn't had any contact with her in years. But when I was reading it, I just became offended. Have you heard the term virtue signaling?
Yes, I have.
So here they are. They chose to fire a single mom
Mm-hmm.
who's dependent on her job to raise her son. And not only that, they wanted to tell the whole world about it, to disparage her reputation in the community. And it was, so I defended her in social media because, the opinions were very vitriolic and divided because people, I'm a lawyer, I'm used to it. When people take a position, they try and make their position as strong as possible. And pretty soon, it wasn't just one Cheeto that she gave to the monkey. It was a hot Cheeto, which is untrue. Mm-hmm. And then they started talking about the gastronomic effects on the monkey. Like, if you go on YouTube, you can see movies or videos of monkeys all over the world drinking beer, eating out of trash cans. But this one Cheeto was going to poison this monkey, and it was child abuse. Anyway, I hired Lucy, and she's been a great paralegal in my office.
Yeah.
But there is this idea that people who are animal lovers are better people. And we live in a free society.
That's not true. Okay.
So, if you want to have a pet, why not? It's a free country. But you don't have to turn it into a religion where, animals now are raised to the level of human being, because that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. Pretty soon. I tell that when I have a parent in there who wants to fight for custody. I ask them, how do you consider yourself a good parent? And often they'll tell me what they do, and I said, well, you're describing a pet. Mm-hmm. Even pets have health insurance and a place to live and clothes and so forth. To raise a kid, it's completely different. It's they got a brain, and you got to develop that brain. But it went viral, and people were very mad at me. But in the end, I checked with Rob Lovett, and I said, hey, man, we're lawyers, and this is publicity. I have 3 stations that want to interview me, but I'm not going to do it without you. I want you to go on with me. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, but you called me a simp. Have you ever heard that term? It means you're controlled by your wife.
Oh, okay.
And I said, dude, it's all in fun. We can go laugh about it. You can call me whatever you want. Yeah. Let's go do these interviews. But he chose not to. He chose not to.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on this interview, Mark. I think we've taken enough of your time today. I think we've hit all different points, and if anybody needs to contact you for any of their law needs, what's your office number? Where's your office located? I know you're switching offices to a humongous office here coming soon, so tell El Paso where they can reach you.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for inviting me on. I really enjoy it. You can go to my website, Mark T. Davis. That's the easiest place to find me. But we're on Loma Land now, and yes, we're finishing our new building. It's going to be over by Bassett. But right now we're at 1554 Loma Land. But in about 3 weeks, we should be open at 1420 Geronimo. Well, and I'll let you know when I have the grand opening. I'll make sure it's fun.
Let's throw a big party and have some tequila.
Sure, why not? Right.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Mario. I appreciate you inviting me.